All right, you guys, welcome to the Illinois High School Football Coaches Association. Today we have Scott Mueller from Washington University. He's the recruiting coordinator and running back coach, and today he's going to be talking to us about the fundamental approach to RPOs. Coach, take it away.
Appreciate it. Certainly welcome you guys to the room. Hopefully share a few ideas and some of the things that I picked up on through the years with different approaches to run pass options. Some things that hopefully might help you going forward. And without further ado, I'll go ahead and get started. I think one of the main things with RPOs is kind of defining the way that you use them within your offense. One is through the pre-snap approach, where it's really more leverage based on how the defense is aligned, how the corners are playing, how those in-between defenders, those outside backers, studs, Sams, Wills, are leveraging the space on the field, how the safeties are aligned, and really making decisions based on the alignment of the defense before the ball is snapped. Post-snap RPOs are a little bit different, where you're keying a particular defender. It could be that stud or Sam to the field, or safety into the boundary. There's a lot of different ways you can go about the post-snap RPO approach. So hopefully I can share with you some different things that might give you some new insight to both of these. I know I'm going to focus primarily on a system that was developed probably over the last 7 or 8 years, with kind of picking brains of some of the more well-known tempo guys, no huddle guys, RPO guys from around the country, with Chip Kelly and Gus Malzahn at the time. And he's an awesome coach, Chad Morris, who's down at Allen at the moment, and one individual, Walt Bell, who was very helpful in establishing what we have entitled as three-point play. So I'll get into all those different things, but wanted to give some shout out to those guys for some of the help that they've given through the years, and then kind of touch on each of the different components. So starting out with, again, this is more pre-snap approach for run pass options with three-point plays. And you can kind of see the verbiage that's on the screen here. But it can be a foundational component to what you do within your offense for both your run and your pass game, as far as short game goes. We divided the field essentially into 3 distinct segments. And you can kind of see that outlined with the diagrams there. The quarterback essentially puts us in the best case scenario. There are no check with me calls necessary, where you're having to freeze it and wait at the line of scrimmage to kind of take that next step for that offensive play. The nice thing with this particular approach is it was a good way for us to keep us out of bad plays, those lower percentage plays, and not have to have the quarterback think too much. As you look at the way that it's broken down with those 3 segments of the field, the way that we kind of establish some different things within this structure is the players that are tight to the box execute the called run. And that could be whatever type of run that you would like, counters, powers, inside zone, zone read, traps. And you'll see a lot of those different things on film here in just a moment. So whatever your base run game is, most of it can be implemented into a structure similar to this. The split receivers execute kind of basic route combinations, your bubbles, your whether that's you're doing crossover technique or skate technique with your inside receiver, or you're backing out that number 2 receiver, just to kind of give a little bit of a different timing approach to it. There's a lot of different variations on what you can do with some of those different route combinations, and you'll see some of those as well. And again, based on the look of the defense, the tech or leverage of a particular defender, the QB is really the only one at that moment in time, once the ball is snapped, where he knows where the ball is going to go. As a standard progression, and I think this is something that is going to be unique, probably a little bit based on your personnel. This is something that I know in years past we had gone to, where this is more, again, leaning on some of the Walt Bell stuff that he helped us out with, of utilizing the field pass first. So whether that is your bubble slant, your key screen, or your now screen, work the field first, because every defense in the country teaches pursuit drill, and you're going to make those guys run. Maybe you don't match up extremely well up front. You have smaller guys and you're outweighed by 50, 60, 70 pounds. It was a good way to find an equalizer for us. As starting with that is kind of the priority. And there's some things that the quarterback looks for to see if he has that field pass. Boundary pass, whether it's two receivers, could be a single receiver. There are some different passes and different route combinations that the quarterback can work there. And then finally, whatever run that you would have, again, power, zone, kind of whatever sort of run game that you kind of hang your hat on. The one thing that was helpful for us is, rather than indicating whether it's two high or keying one individual defender within this approach, was if a defender was 10 yards or more off, he didn't exist to us. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a moment. The keys for us, as you look at the diagrams that are kind of listed at the top, was kind of IDing what a fringe defender was, whether it be a Sam backer playing to the field over here. Is he on the fringe of being in this particular segment of the field or this particular segment of the field? There's some specific things that you'll see on film that kind of help the quarterback within that process. Some additional things that will help, again, within this approach, is understanding if there are alley defenders, especially for the teams that like to play a lot of press man, tighter coverage, some zero, where they don't necessarily have a third level defender that's going to come down and take away some of the a little bit more vertical passing components that the quarterback is aware of as well. Now, when we utilized this structure before, everything was within the quarterback's hands. I know some of the local high schools around the St. Louis area have basically pulled that portion away from the QB to make it a little bit more, I guess, easier, number one, for the control for the coach to be able to call the specific things and not have the quarterback think hardly at all, other than kind of going through, as Chad Morris would say, a pre-flight, a log for like what pilots do before they take off, where they go through a 1, 2, 3 step approach to knowing where they're going with the football. A lot of the local guys around here just call it for the QB and then let him go through the progression portion. A couple other things that are important, whether you're in pistol or sidecar, offset with your running backs. If the quarterback was going to be opening to the running back, we always had flash fakes built in, so that you had a little bit of a play action element to it to help hold different guys as kind of a bonus. And if the quarterback was opening away from that running back, he just set his feet as quickly as possible and got the ball out. So this is kind of a simple diagram of what that looks like. So again, we start with the field with the 3-point play approach. If that guy is going to leave the field, that's where the ball should go. And it's a pretty easy thing to see, and you'll see that on film again here in a few moments. If it's not there, where that outside backer, studs, safety, Sam, whoever that guy happens to be, stays out there based on his alignment, then we look to the boundary. If that corner is 7 yards or more off the football, one of the base passing things for a single receiver is just throw hitches. It's basically a hitch read into the boundary. We'll take the free ones. It is a lot of coaches through the years have said 4 yards is 4 yards. It doesn't matter how you get it. I think if you were to tell most offensive coordinators at the end of a game you're averaging over 5 yards a carry, they would take that in a heartbeat. If you can average 5 yards every time you hit those freebies and it's 100% completion on the outside into the boundary, we want to be able to take those as much as possible. So that'd be the next portion of this progression. If that corner is up a little bit tighter, and the field is just the same way that I mentioned a minute ago, where we don't have access to the field, the corner is a little bit tighter, we're going to hand the ball off and go ahead and work the run. Now there's some limitations, especially with some of the press man looks, but there are some options within the different passing combinations that you can run to help alleviate some of the tension that those defensive looks give you. The last thing before we get into the film, and these are some additional notes. I already mentioned before, if a defender is more than 10 yards off, he does not exist to us. Uncovered receivers definitely need the ball in space now. If the defense is trying to leverage the field and take away other portions of the space with their alignments and leave our guys open, we ought to make them pay for it. Just taking the easiest access that we possibly can to move the ball down the field. As you look at some of the notes that are out here as far as base route combinations, and this is stuff that would start in the QB room in the summer, spring ball, in camp, of having just basic understanding. Would you rather have a larger tight end catching a bubble with a tiny wide receiver blocking for him, or vice versa? So there's different ways you can get to that with alignment to switch that. There's other ways you can call just different combinations to get the ball in the faster playmaker's hands. There are times where you will have spacing advantages. I mentioned that before, and I'll show you some of those. And there are times where we're going to see different defensive techniques, and you guys will too, where you might see trap corners or guys inserting a little bit differently to take quick game away, or even force a turnover. So there are some different ways that, again, can make the defense pay for those different things. The last thing that's up there under this section right here is weather. And this took me a couple years to kind of work through. I know we had a few years through 2014 through 2018 where we had some snow or wind games trying to operate within the 3-point play system. And when the wind is 50 miles an hour or it's sleet outside, it doesn't quite work nearly as effective. You guys witnessed that a little bit last week or the week before. I don't remember which one, with New England and Buffalo with the NFL. Sometimes you just have to make changes within the format of what you do and maybe not spit it all over the place to move the ball down the field. Some other things to kind of keep in mind, some adjustments from drive to drive. It's tied into the things that are listed above. And being able to give that quarterback some very basic things to look for without having him think too much when he gets back out there, and just let him play. One of the things that I'll point out on film is you saw the kind of the animation of what it looks like with that fringe defender leaving based on him blitzing or something like that. There are times you can notice it on film. You can pick it up through the course of a game where that guy that's out in space is 100% a run first defender, even though he's lined up in an apex position. He's not blitzing, but he is run first all the way. So we want to make sure that we, again, take advantage of the space and the technique of those different defenders. For the guys that are ultra talented, and we see them at every single level of football, we want to make sure that we have some other options. We could call it stretching. It was actually something I got from Doc Holliday at BYU years ago. Force that guy to declare whether he is a run or pass defender. So you'll see some of those as well. So that's pretty much the start of it. The one thing that I would say specifically about this approach, the pre-snap approach, kind of the 3-point play structure. Again, some high school teams have flipped it where they work boundary first, field second, run last. It's really kind of up to you and based on your personnel. But the one thing that I do know is from a practice standpoint, being able to coach it on the field and certainly in the classroom on film, it is incredibly easy to do. It takes a little bit less time than some of the post-snap RPOs that I'll talk about at the back end, just for all the different looks that you could possibly see. The uncovered principle, again, that whole progression of field, boundary, run, there's no reason to continue on. So I'll show you a handful of different clips with that against different teams we've played. This is a situation here where our number 2 receiver to the left is uncovered. They decided to stack the box, take away the run. Quarterback does go through a quick flash fake, gets the ball out right now, and provides us with an explosive play. And ultimately, this setup was designed to provide explosive plays. We had done a study back in 2014 at every level of football to look at explosive plays resulting in scoring drives. Looking at the top teams in the country at the Division III, Division II, FCS and FBS levels, and basically breaking down every single game that they played for the number of drives that finished with a touchdown, regardless of where they started. They could start at their own 1-yard line or start at the opponent's 15-yard line. But every time that there was a 15-yard explosive play, the odds of getting a touchdown at the end of that drive went up dramatically. So it was definitely a point of emphasis within our program. And you can see how some of these become very, very simple, just leveraging space. Here's another look, very similar. That number 2 receiver to our right. I can tell you from a matchup standpoint, for player, probably not on par with this particular team, but we were in this game to the very end. Just being able, again, to leverage the space. And as you talk to your quarterback, you talk to your offensive coordinator, it really does become that simple: is where's the space? How's the defensive line? Let's go where they're not. Take the easiest access to move the ball up the field. Here's a little bit of a different look. So it's not your standard 10 personnel. In this scenario, the corner and the safety are nearly 10 yards off the football. You know, if you look at the numbers within the box, they have 8 for R7. I know there is the extra gap that comes out of 2 tight personnel, double tight. There's no sense in banging our heads against the wall. Spit it out. Let the fast guys kind of go from there. You'll see, again, run-wise, I'll let some of the end zone shots. I know I apologize for not letting some of the end zone shots run. You'll see traps. You'll see counters. You'll see basically a no-pull, pin and pull, a lot of different run variations that kind of go through these. But all these right now, because of the uncovered principle, is going to have that ball spit out in space. Again, this guy doesn't exist to us right here. He's more than 10 off. Quarterback knows it right now, sets his feet, spits it out, basically a 2-for-2 block, and then there's nothing else in behind it. Now, we all wish we had guys like this playing for us. He was a pretty special guy that ended up being a second-team All-American. I guess the play was a little too fast for the cameraman on that one. Another shot here. Again, this defender is 10 plus. Pretty standard key or now screen. Rather than trying to beat our heads against the wall against a couple All-American linebackers and some pretty big defensive linemen, we're able to move the ball 7 yards upfield. As you watch a little bit of the start of the end zone, again, breaking the field into different segments. Formationally, if I go back, obviously there's not a 3-point portion to it. This ends up being a 2-point play. And there are some formations that do restrict that third segment into the boundary. But this one here, as you watch the offensive lineman, they have no idea where the ball is going to go. So that does take a little bit of an approach with your offensive line coach to understand that component. So our guys aren't chasing linebackers down the field once they recognize that it is some sort of pass that's being spit out to the field. No one likes the ineligible downfield calls. One of the other things, kind of going back to the same thing I had mentioned once before, of understanding where the space is. I'm going to move the little guy here so it's a little lower. This guy is 10 yards off plus, almost 12, 13 yards off. He doesn't exist to us, but rather than throwing bubbles and key screens and things like that, where they do have the field leverage that way, one of the other options, and you can kind of see it on this is a little bit of a change up to give a different look with throwing the ball to number 3, where the space is going to be. Keeping it relatively simple. Go where the defense isn't. Again, all of these calls that you've seen up to this point, for the most part, the quarterback is signaled and called. You can call them from the sideline if you feel more comfortable with that. So you have a little bit more control, or you want to, maybe your quarterback is struggling being able to see the field. But the one thing that I have been able to pick up pretty well is once this guy has a pretty good feel for what's going on, he has a much better line of sight than somebody up in the booth or someone on the sideline. So you can see one of the shots there. Again, up front, I think it's probably just a standard inside zone sort of look. They have us outnumbered in the box. Here's another look here. Very similar. And this is actually a little bit further into this particular game. And again, kind of looking at specific techniques of defenders. That middle linebacker was extremely concerned about carrying number 3 vertically up the field for some of our drop back game. So as you watch his technique, once this snap starts, you can see how he plays that number 3 receiver, and we're able to basically dink it right underneath him. We knew he was not going to be a run defender just based on the way he was playing through the first few drives of the game, which was a little bit different than what we had seen game planning wise throughout the week. And this is an easy adjustment to make on the sideline, and again, get the ball to somebody that can get an explosive play up the field that might run a 5.5 40. And now getting into the actual progression out to the field. So as you look at what our quarterback is looking at, he's leap. He's blitzing right now. Set your feet. Get it out. Let him make a play. Now, this isn't an explosive play for us, but it is a 10-yard gain. And as you look at all these other guys that are in the box, this ended up being one of the better defenses in the country. Every single one of those guys is turning and sprinting to get to the football, at least attempting to. I know they had done that numerous times throughout the course of the game. And as the game continues on, especially for tempo teams that are pushing at a little bit faster speed, they tend to wear out. They're just not used to seeing that on a routine basis. This situation here, this was pretty early in the game, and they had brought a lot of field pressure. Again, we're not keying a specific defender. It's very simple within the confines of the 3-point approach. He looks like he's getting ready to blitz, get it out. If nothing else, you've changed the tackling angles for those defenders. That affects the safety now, that Sam or stud linebacker. This look here was 100% game plan based. So this is against University of Wisconsin Whitewater. This guy is not leaving. There's no reason other than what we had seen on film that he was a run first defender. And that's something you can pick up on film. Is he keying through the end man on the line of scrimmage to the quarterback or the back? And we definitely knew that was the case in this game. Until they would take this away, we're going to throw this all day. Again, as if you look at the guys that are up front, They're a little bigger, a little stronger, pretty solid football team across the board compared to us. But this is a game we're winning going into the fourth quarter. The last portion, this is really just to show you, actually, this is the second portion with the boundary and some of the options there, with that corner being 7 yards plus. Now, initially, he's lined up at 6. You can tell coverage-wise that he is going to drop just based on the shell of the defense, the alignment with that corner getting ready to utilize skate technique that he's going to be opening up. Now, we even froze it on the sideline, not necessarily a check with me, but just to make sure they were in the look that we thought they were going to be. It's nice and easy to get a freebie. And hopefully your skill guy can make a guy miss. This next shot, they started with their corner pressed and tried to stem a roll coverage. But if you look right before the ball is snapped, that corner is more than 7 yards off. The field is dead. The quarterback knows he's not going out there. Boundary's his next choice. He's got it. He's going to take it. Now, this is with a pin and pull look. So some of the stuff you've seen has been zone-based. But you can pair it with just about every run. Something to keep in mind is some of the communication with the offensive line. So we're not getting free hits on the quarterback. This is just our tackle turning his block loose. This clip here is something that we talk about specifically within the 3-point structure. Is, do we have alley access into the boundary? And by alley access, basically for slants, something that's going to hit within this pocket of the field, whether it's some sort of odd coverage, cover 3, cover 1. This situation is actually cover 0 to start with from an alignment standpoint, because of the amount of peppering to the field that we had done prior to in this game. We do have access here. So our quarterback actually signals it out. And again, you can call this for the quarterback, but it is a little bit easier if he understands the situation on when to do it. Calls a slant because there is no one in this area. And then there's basically no help. And part of the idea behind this setup is to provide you with explosive plays. The last portion, and we still had called runs within this setup where there were no 3 points to it. It was just a called run. But these are at least some of the different things that we had done through the years to kind of show you the results of forcing that defense to protect the field, to protect some of the spacing into the boundary, being able to utilize different formations. So there's still some communication issues, and then how the run fits in with that. Again, explosive plays being kind of a focal point. So the field is definitely dead. This is only a 2-point play. There's no receivers into the boundary. You can see they have 3 guys that are within 5 yards of our receivers, plus another guy that's working that direction. Any sort of pass out here that is not down the field, and even if it is down the field, does not look great. So the quarterback hands the ball off, and we're off to the races. A little bit of a late start here. But again, all 4 of those guys that were so worried about protecting the field are nowhere near in the picture. That's the safety late. Again, changing the angles for those defenders on how they're going to make the tackle. This is whatever run package stuff that you have, you can fit within the structure. So here you see a bubble up top. This is with a zone read out of pistol and with a hitch at the bottom. I would say something to keep in mind for teams that like to utilize run pass options is how you want to coach your skill guys up on the perimeter once they realize that they're not getting the ball. Art Briles, when he was at Baylor, basically told his guys to choke it off, save your energy for the next snap. For us, there were too many times, and you can kind of see it develop right here, where our receiver runs the hitch and they would just stop. Something we had to kind of grow through in 13 and 14. You can see our receiver right now. The moment that he realizes he's not getting the ball, he's converting and fitting up for a block. I'd like to stay maybe 1 second longer, but we are getting a pretty nice chunk out of it. This is basically a no pull, pin and pull. Again, just through learning experience, I love pin and pull. It's one of our base plays now. And I know we had run it through the years. One of the things that I personally did not like is we would either get 10 yards or -2 based on all the different line games and stunts and pressures that we would see that would throw off some of those exchange blocks up front. This is something that kind of grew out of that, where we were zoning to the front side and leveraging late to get everything turned and get the linebackers sucked downhill into the box and then kick the ball out wide. And this is something we did prior to RPOs. Just want to share this one with you, and you'll see it later as well. This is a play that we averaged close to 5.5 yards a carry over the course of 10 years, and it was a base play for us. We call this bounce. You can kind of see it from the end zone shot here and see the effect of the linebacker stepping downhill to clear it. So it's a little bit different than maybe a traditional pin and pull or horn play, but it certainly made it a lot easier to handle a lot of the gap exchange stuff that we would see from those defensive tackles at the ends. Just to be able to zone it, get everything handled, and be able to kick it outside. Counters, we'll still have a quick game out here. You'll see quick game here. Field is dead, boundary's dead. Powers, all the different run options that you can think of can fit pretty well, even two-back stuff. You saw number 7 right there. After he was going through his hitch read, converted his block, stayed with it enough, and ended up getting 2 knockdowns out of the deal. Now, a few of the adjustments, I mentioned these up towards the front end, and kind of the other notes is what we call stretch. Made this guy, this is really for those guys that are extremely talented players, guys that are able to play the run and the pass. And for us, it was a very easy thing for the quarterback to look at. Is that guy on or outside the hash? If he is, he's declared himself as a pass defender because his angle to get involved with the run is too far away. And it's not great because he's always going to be hitting from the side. If he was inside the hash, the ball should be put out here. So this was an easy way for us to communicate with the quarterback, give him some very basic principles with being able to stretch that number 2 receiver out. Again, you're limited a little bit with some of the route combinations that you can run from here. But again, it doesn't have to be every single ingredient in your notebook. This is a pretty easy thing for that quarterback to be able to see. He sees him out there. He knows he's not going to it. He looks into the boundary. He knows he's not going to that. He hands the ball off. And if you look, this kid gets a JOP at the very end where he's jumping on the pile, but that's it. Just kind of right downhill and moving the ball. against the eventual, I guess, national champs. You just see it on this one here as well. That guy is on or outside the hash. He is a pass defender. This is dead to us because this corner is not 7 yards or more off. The boundary is dead to us. We're handing the football off. And this is another look at that bounce play, that bounce running play, the no pull, pin and pull. You can see how the linebackers fit. They're downhill right now. Again, we won't be able to clear it and get to the end zone. And as far as the teaching points for that running back, it was always pretty easy, just like you would for pin and pull. If that tight end is getting stretched to the sideline, stick your foot in the ground and fit inside. If it gets that sealed, then we're outside of it. There was no keying a second pull or however you coach your RBs. It was a pretty easy vision drill for that running back. This look right here, again, this is within that same stretch approach for that outside backer safety type. Is he on or outside the hash? In this situation, he's not. He's walked all the way up. He's in a blitz situation. We know we're going to be spitting the ball out right now. The quarterback sets his feet, gets it out. One of the other points that this number 2 receiver is actually doing a really nice job of. One of the things that is a little bit challenging with coaching the receivers is what landmarks do you want to give him for his approach to secure that block, whether it's a hard firing corner that's downhill right now, or it could be a situation where it's just a different look. It's not ideal. It's almost impossible to recover back towards the line of scrimmage than it is to approach it up the field. Whether you coach your guys to say you're 2 yards in front, 1 yard in front, the most basic thing that I picked up on through the years is just replace the toes. If you replace the toes of the outside receiver, you're always going to be on track where you can redirect up the field to handle that block. So you can watch the number 2 receiver on this. He's on track to replace the toes. He sees that the corner is bailing. He goes and handles the block. And as far as that standard stuff for key or now screens, that outside receiver, stick your foot in the ground, clear the trash. Don't dance. Don't run back towards the middle of the defense where all the pursuit's coming from. Clear the trash right now. Play a 2-on-2 game. For teams that will take the field away, but you don't want to lose your quick game. So if you look out here to the field, and I'll see if I can move this out of the way. Sorry. If you look out here to the field, bubble does not look great. Plus, based on this defender's technique, he was triggering hard on bubbles to try and take them away or limit the amount of yardage that we could get. Boundary-wise, that looks dead too. If you look at the box, that's stacked. I mean, there are 7 guys in the box to take away the run. So this is a small adjustment that you can make in game. Obviously, you have to have prepped prior to, but all it is a slant bubble. Now, I do have to warn you on this particular clip, the outside receiver actually breaks his leg at the end of this play. So if you have a little bit of a light stomach, feel free to look away. But we'll let this one go. But again, where's the space on the field? Where's the defender's technique without having it have to be a post-snap RPO? We're going to let that one just skip past that part. Another option, very simple. Again, for trap corners, somebody that's going to be pressing this really, really hard to take away your quick game to the field is a bubble gun. Now, the one thing that working with cues is it has to be a very fast ball. The timing of it, it's your standard 1 ball. And he basically has a limitation that ball has to be caught before it's 20 yards downfield. So there are times where he might be coming off a mesh point with the running back based on the run. It might be a situation where he is pumping the bubble. So you'll see two examples here, one with the back, one with a pump to the bubble. So you'll see both, but it has to be a very fast exchange from the backfield to get that ball to the fade on the outside. So you'll see a trap corner here. Again, to take away the bubble, he triggers right now. Obviously, if we were throwing a bubble, this would be a dead play. But instead, you can kind of look at the distance up the field. This ball is caught at about 16 yards. And where's the space? How is the defense aligned? And then what other techniques from there? It's basically kind of your in-game adjustments. This is with a counter. There was a little bit of a pump there. The back was going away from him. This next one, yeah, this is in a game where we're seeing some trap corners that are triggering on quick game right now. Based on just the alignment of the defense, we should be going out to the field, but because of the technique of that corner, bubbles, key screens are not clean. I mean, you're basically helping out the defensive stat line. This is a pretty easy change up. You can see it with coming off the mesh point. And again, this could be from sidecar with the running back right there, or you can do it from pistol. You're picking up 15 yards again to get an explosive play. Moving on to post-snap RPOs. These are some of the things that we're utilizing pretty routinely now in our offense, where we are keying a specific defender post-snap. So there is a distinction between the three-point play approach that I just spent a significant amount of time on. These are the post-snap RPOs. So you can see a standard two-high shell, kind of quarters look. We're keying that safety that's into the boundary with a slant. These take a little bit longer to develop because you are trying to get a reaction out of a defender to see what he's going to do on whether you're going to be throwing this or handing the ball off. This is with a counter action in the backfield. Quick game out to the field. Again, this is not part of the three-point approach. This is strictly post-snap RPOs. If that guy triggers downhill, we're throwing it, and that's what we get out. Here's another post-snap RPO. We're keying towards the inside, and you'll see that here. If he's going to be triggering down, we throw it. That's the number 2 receiver as opposed to the single receiver into the boundary. Here's one other additional look at the same thing where we're keying that what would essentially be a D-gap defender and going from there. D-gap defender, is he a run player? Yes. This is with a fade out. Something pretty standard that a lot of teams utilize. Again, getting easy connections where you know they're 100% automatic to be able to spit it out and get the ball in space. This is into the boundary. Again, D-gap defender, run player. He is, spit it out. If he's playing the pass, hand it off. See it out of a couple different looks. He steps up to play the run, we spit it out. And I think that's probably the blanket cover of both pre-snap RPOs with three-point plays and just a sampling of some of the post-snap RPOs. I think the biggest distinction between the two is almost a full system where you have pretty much the answers within like your own notebook before you even start. With the post-snap approach, it is a great way to take advantage of specific defenders' techniques. I think that the challenge between the two, one does require a little bit of time from the standpoint of structure, of being able to teach the components of what that quarterback is going to be working through. With the pre-snap approach, with the post-snap approach, it becomes a little bit more challenging from the standpoint of how you're going to practice it, because you have to utilize that slant look into the boundary that you saw where the quarterback was keying a defender against all the different looks that you could possibly see, whether it's a two shell, cover two, some sort of quarters, all the different odd variations that you could see, and to be able to practice those so the quarterback can see those. So it does come down a little bit to rep limitations within all the different post-snap RPOs. So there's different reasons for both, and hopefully you gain something out of this talk. And with that, I'll open things up for questions.
That was great, Coach. At the moment, there aren't any questions, but Coach, we do appreciate you. And on behalf of the Illinois High School Football Coaches Association, we'd like to thank you for sharing and taking the time.
Awesome. Thank you.